The hotel lobby was bustling with activity, guests checking in, staff hurrying to assist, and the soft hum of conversation filling the air. But in the middle of it all, one voice cut through the noise. A hotel manager stood with arms crossed, his expression twisted in frustration. In front of him, a guest sat in a wheelchair, looking up in disbelief. "I'm sorry, but we have a policy," the manager said coldly. "We can't accommodate your situation right now. You'll have to leave." A hush fell over the nearby guests. Some exchanged uncomfortable glances, while others looked away, pretending not to hear. The guest, clearly embarrassed but holding back tears, tried to reason with him. "I made a reservation. I followed all the guidelines. Why are you doing this?" The manager shook his head. "That's not my problem." With that, he called security. The guest, humiliated and defeated, had no choice but to turn away. But what the manager didn't know was that he had just made the biggest mistake of his career. Because when the truth finally came out, it wouldn't just be his reputation on the line, it would be the entire hotel's. And this guest? They weren't just anyone. As the hotel's automatic doors slid shut behind the guest, a cold gust of wind swept through the entrance, as if the universe itself had taken notice of the injustice that had just occurred. The guest clenched their jaw, gripping the wheels of their chair tightly. This wasn't the first time they had faced discrimination, but it never got easier. The humiliation burned, but beneath it was something stronger: determination. Inside the hotel, the manager smirked, feeling satisfied with himself. He had dealt with enough so-called inconveniences today. He turned on his heel, making his way back to the front desk, oblivious to the quiet murmurs of disapproval from guests who had witnessed the scene. Near the entrance, a young receptionist shifted uncomfortably behind the desk. She had just started working at the hotel a few months ago, eager to build her career in hospitality. But this? This wasn't what she signed up for. She glanced at her co-worker, who was equally stunned. "Did that really just happen?" she whispered. Her colleague sighed, shaking his head. "Yeah. And if we say anything, we'll probably be next." The conversation was cut short as the manager barked, "Back to work." They straightened up, falling silent, but the uneasy feeling in the pit of their stomachs didn't go away. Meanwhile, outside, the guests took a deep breath, pulling out their phone. They had contacts, people who would want to know about this. With steady hands, they began typing. At the same time, a man sitting in the hotel's lounge had witnessed the entire incident. He wasn't just any guest, he was an influential journalist known for exposing businesses that mistreated customers. He leaned forward, rubbing his chin in thought. "This is a story worth telling," he murmured to himself. The evening pressed on, the hotel staff and guests carrying on as if nothing had happened. But beneath the surface, tension was brewing. A few miles away, in a quiet office, an email notification lit up a screen. A well-respected lawyer read the message carefully, their eyes narrowing at the details. They picked up their phone, dialing a number. "Hey, I just got something you need to see." At the hotel, the manager strutted through the halls, blissfully unaware that his actions were about to come back to haunt him. The hotel buzzed with its usual evening crowd, travelers checking in, staff moving swiftly through the corridors, and the distant clatter of dishes from the restaurant. But beneath the surface, something was different. The air felt heavier, thick with the weight of something unseen. Though most guests were unaware, a storm was brewing, and the man at the center of it all, the manager, still had no idea. Up in one of the suites, the journalist sat at his laptop, replaying the footage he had secretly recorded in the lobby. The clip was damning: the manager's dismissive tone, the humiliation on the guest's face, the uneasy silence of the onlookers. He had covered stories like this before, but something about this one felt different. Maybe it was the sheer cruelty of it, or maybe it was the way the guest had handled it with such quiet strength. Either way, the world needed to see this. With a few clicks, he drafted a post, attaching the video and writing a caption that would send shockwaves through the industry: "A high-end hotel kicks out a disabled guest without reason. Their excuse? Policy." He hesitated for a moment, knowing what would come next: the flood of outrage, the hotel's PR scrambling for damage control, the public demanding justice. Then he hit post. Within minutes, the video started gaining traction. First, a few shares. Then dozens. Then hundreds. Comments flooded in, some from people who had faced similar discrimination, others demanding accountability. The journalist refreshed his screen. The numbers were climbing fast. This was bigger than he expected. Meanwhile, at a small CAF across town, the guests sat across from their lawyer, reviewing legal documents. "This isn't just about me," they said, voice steady. "If they did this to me, they've probably done it to others." The lawyer nodded. "I agree. We can pursue legal action. But with the way this is spreading online, the hotel might try to settle quickly." The guest exhaled, torn. A settlement might be easier, but something about it didn't sit right. "I don't just want money. I want them to change." The lawyer studied them for a moment before setting the papers aside. "Then we fight." Back at the hotel, the manager was still unaware of the chaos unraveling outside his carefully curated world. He strolled through the lobby, barking orders at staff, completely oblivious to the whispers between employees. They had seen the video. They had read the comments. Some even felt guilty for staying silent when it happened. Then, his phone rang. He barely had time to say hello before his boss's furious voice came through the speaker. "What the hell did you do?" The manager frowned. "What are you talking about? You kicked out a disabled guest, and now it's all over the internet. Are you out of your mind?" His stomach dropped. "That's ridiculous." "It wasn't. Save it." His boss's voice was ice. "We're being bombarded with emails, calls, reporters. Do you even understand how much damage this is doing to us? Fix it. Now." The call ended. His hands felt clammy as he opened his phone. And there it was, the video, the outrage, the flood of comments calling for boycotts, lawsuits, accountability. Panic clawed at his chest. He had never faced anything like this before. He was good at pushing problems aside, making them disappear. But this? This wasn't going away. He stormed over to the receptionist. "Did you know about this?" The young woman hesitated. "Everyone knows about it." Her tone made him pause. There was no fear, no nervousness, just quiet disappointment. And she wasn't the only one. He could feel the eyes of other employees watching him, some avoiding his gaze entirely. He swallowed hard. "We need to do damage control. Get me PR." But it was already too late. The damage was done. The next morning, the hotel lobby was swarming with reporters. News vans lined the street. Guests whispered as they scrolled through their phones, reading the latest headlines. The hotel had released a statement, a vague, corporate apology, but it wasn't enough. Then, the doors swung open. The guest entered, flanked by their lawyer. Cameras flashed. The room fell silent. The manager stood frozen behind the desk, his heart pounding. He wanted to disappear. The guest rolled forward, stopping just a few feet away. Their voice was calm, but there was steel behind it. "I came back to give you a chance to do the right thing." The tension was suffocating. Everyone waited. The manager opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked around at the cameras, the guests, his own staff, many of whom no longer seemed to respect him. He had no choice. With a shaking breath, he finally said the words he should have said from the start. "I'm sorry." But was it enough? That, only time would tell.